yeah, it's fine to do stand up, and yeah, but you also need to know how to work the camera just in case somebody gets sick. You need to know how to edit. When I do my podcast, I edit my podcast, and I know how to upload it to Podbean, just because you want to have that autonomy in case you need it. And so what I submitted for that packet was it was a transcript for one of my Rita Brent reports, because I got the packet late and the deadline was really close and I didn't have time to think of things from scratch. So I used what I wrote for my own Rita Brent report as my submission, and I was surprised that I got it off that. But it just goes to show that consistency matters and what you're doing matters, because I don't get a ton of views on the Rita Brent report, but that writing is what got me my first TV writing job. So just keep doing what you're doing. It's gonna lead somewhere, even if you get weary.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of How to Work in TV with Charles McBee. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, do all the things, all right? Help grow this channel, help, spread the news, spread the gospel. And this episode, I'm very excited to have my homegirl, a comedian that I respect a great deal. She wrote for the 2021 Emmys. She wrote for the Country Music Awards. She's a writer for the God's Honest Truth on Comedy Central with Charlamagne Tha God. And she's just an all-around great person. It is the one and only Rita Brent, everybody. Please be sure to show love. Check it out. All right, bet. So like I was telling you earlier, I've been doing this series because for people like me and maybe even like yourself, growing up in Toledo, Ohio, I didn't know how to get into television. I didn't know how to get into comedy. I didn't know how to get into the entertainment business or any of that stuff. And so I would look for things online. I would look for, somebody to give me some information, and I couldn't find nothing. So I wanted to kind of do this as a way to kind of give back to those who aren't from LA, aren't from New York, and have no clue as to how to get into this. And the best way I knew how to do that was to reach out to people that I know and admire, and kind of get their take and get some of their gems and their backstory a little bit. So I kind of want to start with you a little bit from the beginning. You are from Mississippi, correct?
Yes, Jackson, Mississippi, and Mississippi is the home of Oprah Winfrey, Morgan Freeman, Anjanou Ellis. So people who have really nice acting careers, a lot of them come from Mississippi, and people don't know that.
That's one thing about one of the things about you that I love, because you have such a pride in where you come from. Like talking to you, you will run off like facts and history and like all of that. Everything about you is like pride, and we're in HBCUs, pride in your sorority, pride in your hometown. So that's definitely like there's something about you that and I know that other people also enjoy about you. So like coming up in Mississippi and knowing that Morgan Freeman and Oprah Winfrey's and all these people are from there, what was it that made you have the audacity to think that you could one day be in this industry, being from Jackson, Mississippi? Like, was it because Oprah's and the Morgan Freemans kind of did it first and paved the way, or was it something else? Like, what gave you that inspiration?
The quick answer is my mother. She is the one who got me into music and public speaking at a young age, and showed me the ropes. She's a musician and a singer, and she got me started in church. Church, it is what it is now, but coming up, church really did cultivate me as an artist. I didn't even know that's what was happening, doing Easter speeches and Christmas speeches and playing drums and singing, getting over my stage fright, having a supportive Black congregation. It's the same now when I do comedy. It's a supportive Black congregation out there in the crowd. So I would say my mom was the one who kicked that off for me. And honestly, my introduction to TV in Mississippi was the news. I watched the local news with my grandmother every night, man, every night. And first cousin of mine, well, she may be my second cousin, Maggie Wade, has been on the TV for a long time. And I thought, I think that's something I want to do one day, just be in media and mass communication. So I had the itch as a young girl, for sure.
Dope. And that, I mean, fast forward, that explains the chops and the Rita Brent report and everything else that you got going on now. So that's interesting, especially, particularly when it comes to us, Black folks. We get a lot of our chops, even going back to the blues, going back to jazz, a lot of those chops come from the black church. That's what it is, and it's exactly what you said. It's the getting over the stage fright. It's that first solo. It's that first Easter speech. It's that
Yep.
I don't know if did they have mime ministry where you were from?
Yeah, praise dancing and mimes and all of that.
Praise dancing, the whole nine, waving the flags, the whole shebang.
Facts.
So
Yep.
yeah, that's definitely something that a lot of people, particularly Black people, can relate to. And I mean, also it's a testament of the lack of resources and opportunities that we have in general, and why, even when it comes to going back to civil rights, going back to all of those things, a lot of those resources we would find within the church. That's where we had to go for education, for to get experience in. I know, as you know, my dad's a pastor. And a lot of times he would put some of the young people in charge of the sound ministry and the tech ministry. And that's how a lot of people would get their experience in those fields, and they could go off and have that knowledge, and they wouldn't get that anywhere else. So, like you
Yeah, I
said,
mean, some of Martin Luther King's biggest, most popular speeches happened in the church. During the civil rights movement, there was a safe haven, so public speaking was sacred and it was safe in the church for Black civil rights leaders. So yeah, I think that's where a lot of us got our start.
exactly. So, all right, so you're watching your cousin on the news. You having this knowledge of all these people that came before you. You're watching the news with your grandmother, and your mom is having you in church and all these things. So what was that first initial step to where you say, you know what, I'm going to make this leap into the entertainment industry? I know you went to college. Shout out HBCU. And I know you had a radio program or radio show in college. Was that your first initial kind of break into the business?
Absolutely. When I went to Jackson State, I started off at Tougaloo College, an amazing HBCU, and that's where Anjanou Ellis is a grad, or at least she went there for a while. But they didn't have a mass comm program back in 2005, so I ended up going to Jackson State, and I got my start at 88.5 WJSU. It's a jazz station. It's still popping in Jackson, Mississippi, and I became an announcer very late at night, overnight announcer. And I said, oh man, this feels really good. Initially, I just wanted to do radio because I didn't want my face to be on TV. I just like, oh man, I don't want to have to get ready and put makeup on. And I still don't like doing that. So yeah, I got into radio, and then I started hosting a round table with students, and we would talk about issues, things that are super popular now on YouTube. We were doing it back in 2005 just without monetization. So yeah, I would say that's when I entered media, and did some producing and news reporting type stuff because my degree is in mass communication / broadcast production. So yeah, I guess you could say I was classically trained before I got into it in the entertainment sense. I was there in the academic sense.
That's something that that I've been asking different people, because I hear that a lot, like that they went to school initially for this, and that's something that I'm very interested in. And kind of talking to different people who got into this business at different times, because I wonder, if you were to start today, if you were back in Mississippi and you were like, I want to be in this industry, and you were to start today, do you still feel like going to college and getting that degree and that experience would be vital? Or would it be more like, yo, I'm going to start a YouTube channel and get it popping, or I'm going to just go straight to social media and get it popping? Or is it both?
It depends on your goals. So I will say, when I was in college, I was trying to drop out, and my mother just would not let me, because I said, Mom, this is radio. I can just get on the radio and have on the job training. I don't need to be spending money, for which I'm still paying student loans for this damn degree from 2009. I was like, hey, I don't need that. I'm taking biology. Here I am going on 35, still haven't used the Pythagorean theorem to this day. I said, hey, I
At
don't
least you
need
know how to
this. And
say
she's
it,
like,
because I still can't say it.
yeah, I've been waiting on an opportunity to use this, this damn theorem in my adulthood. And all I know is either you have enough money to pay your bills, you can subtract and add. That's the only math you really need. So it depends on your goals. So at one point I wanted to be a professor. And so I was thinking, oh, I need to get a master's at least to be an adjunct professor or teach on a college level. I went to school 3 more times to get a master's and I dropped out 3 times. After I figured out I don't need this because when you're doing stand up comedy, and then I started reading. Ellen DeGeneres is a dropout. All these folks, Chris Rock, rich, wealthy as hell, talented, amazing legends, and did not go to college. So it depends on your goals, how you want to get there. Because in the same vein, I'm thinking so many people died for my right to have an education. Clearly, they thought it was important and that we needed it. It is a weapon for black people to be educated, so I get that as well. But it ultimately just depends on your goals, and everybody's path is different.
You know, that's interesting that you say that, because I feel like that is a testament to living outside of big city. You know, coming from a small town, which we both come from. Also growing up, in a strong black household, which we come from. Education is something that's very big, especially coming up when we came up, because for many of us, or for some of us, we might be the first ones to get a college degree in the family, or and back then having a job with some benefits and some some stability is like that's key. That's end all be all. So I definitely can relate to having that pressure put on you and having that advice, as far as just like, all right, maybe you want to do this other thing, but make sure you get that diploma, right? Not taking it, and no one ever takes into account that the debt that you go into getting that diploma. Is that diploma going to lead? Is it in STEM? Because if it ain't in STEM, your ass is grass. If you wanna,
Right, engineering,
right,
tech. Yeah.
all those other things don't never get added into that. So basically, like you're saying, it's whatever your path is. Make sure it's your path, and you're not just doing it just because you think you're supposed to. Make sure it actually makes sense for you going forward.
Yeah, but you raise a good point. When we come from small towns, and education seems like the best thing that you can get to make a living and to have some stability. When you're in New York, when I was in New York for a year, oh, it's a completely different beast. It is entertainment driven. I ain't see anybody talking about college and school and all of that. I mean, I was on the campus of NYU a couple times, but I mean, everybody's just pursuing their dreams, and it's a lot of untalented folks out there getting booked. I was like, oh wow, had I lived in New York as a youngster, man, I would be freaking wealthy right now. But because I was in a small town, it was just different. Education was key. It was king.
Exactly. It's just a different mindset, and which I think also is one of the goals that I have for even this series is just like having that looking back in retrospect and kind of letting somebody know, like, hey, here's a different way of thinking. You can still go to school, go to college, or do whatever you want, but here's a different way of thinking. Here's an alternative way of thinking, that you can just have these different perspectives, because like you said, from where we came up, we were just kind of figuring it out as we went, and we didn't have a big homie in that moment to go, hey, look at it from this perspective, look at it from that perspective. This is what I went through. You don't have to go through that. Like Ho said, I went through that, so you ain't got to do that.
And let me offer this caveat. The statistics will show you that white people who are as educated or less educated than black people still make it farther than us. So we are still in a situation where it does literally pay to be a black person and to have education, because the opportunities are less present for us. So in our situation, it does not always work in our favor to be less educated, because our counterparts and our peers, they can be less educated but get more opportunities. So you got to keep that in mind.
Great key. That's a great jewel right there. They have more opportunities, which is why being black in this business is very important to network. Very important that we reach out to each other and lift each other up, which is such a frustrating thing that we deal with because you have some in this business who feel like, once they make it, that then everything is so scarce that they just want to keep other people out. And 2, the crab in the barrel mentality. And then 3, you also have that, those that get to that point where they're in a position of power and they end up being harder on other black people or making it harder for other black people than they do, you know, white people who might be under them. So you have all these things that, you know, that I could go on and on about forever that are very frustrating. But that's definitely a key component is for us is to make sure that we are networking and continuing to kind of build and help each other out. So you're in Mississippi, you go off to college. All right, you have your radio station or your radio show. So what is that next move outside of, you know, you're done, you graduate or you don't finish, but you're done with the radio show, you're done with college. What's that next move for you after that?
So after I graduated with my bachelor's, I was hell bent on getting a master's. That didn't work out, and I ended up at Mississippi Public Broadcasting, which is an NPR affiliate, and I was a radio producer and a host there for 6 years. So I would come up with the questions for the guest, I would interview the guest, I would edit the show and upload it to the website. So all that stuff that radio people do, and it's much different from commercial radio because they have music to lean on. You know, they talk in these little birds. Hey, what up? Thanks for tuning in, 99 Hot 99. On the way, we got Luther Vandross. You know, it ain't like that in public radio. You got to have content. And you have to study these topics because I was hosting a legal show, a technology show, a tourism show. So I did that for 6 years. And at the same time, I was in the Army National Guard band. So I was making money in the Army playing music. So it was a mixture of what I'm passionate about, which is radio and music. And I had not yet entered comedy. That would come a little later. But for most of my life, half of my life at least, my career has been focused on radio, which is a portal to TV, technically.
So as you're doing radio, so at this point in your career, you still didn't even conceive that you would be working in television or in front of the camera per se, or you know, a talent, or I'm a talent as far as being in front of the camera or in front of people. Your whole thing was radio.
Yeah, and while I was at MPB, I did do a couple on-air things. Like we had fundraisers and commercials and ads and hosting different specials. And then that's when I started to get the bite. I'm like, oh, okay, this hits different because people would hear me on the radio all the time and they may recognize my voice in Target. But when I did one show on television, now all of a sudden people are like, oh, I saw you on PBS. And I thought, oh, okay, well, this is a different type of exposure here.
Okay, so you got the bug. So then was that the thing that kind of drove you into stand up per se, or was there still another route that you wanted to take in as far as getting into entertainment outside of radio?
At the time, I was still thinking that I was going to end up playing drums for Prince of Beyonce.
Oh,
So
nice. All right.
yeah, I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm gonna be a TV star. I'm thinking, all right, you know, radio is what it is, and then music is gonna be the thing that propels me onto the national stage. But around 2013, I went to a comedy show in Jackson at this place called Suite 106, and I just started feeling chills. You know, I was like, oh, I think I want to do comedy. And a couple weeks later, I ended up doing comedy, and then I just started doing it full time, performing around town in Mississippi. At the time, I was just doing clean church gigs and stuff, because that's, you know, you make a lot of money doing church gigs in Mississippi. And the thing that really got me into TV was somebody saw my stand up, and I got recommended for a Kevin Hart special on Comedy Central, and so that was my first big TV break, where he gave me my first TV credit, and I was on a national TV station. So that had nothing to do with radio. It had nothing to do with music. It was all comedy, but it came from performing live comedy, which I think a lot of people need to know. You know, you think when you're out performing that nobody's looking, nobody's listening, but somebody always is, and you never know who's in the audience, and that could lead you to your big break, and that's exactly what happened to me.
That's okay. That's great. So 2 questions in. When you were doing your radio before you got into stand up, were you funny on the radio? Was comedy kind of like, even though you didn't consider yourself a comedian, were you kind of like feeling those comedy chops somewhere in there that then later manifested itself into you being a stand up, or feeling like you were funny enough to do stand up?
I'll be honest. when I was on radio in Mississippi, I was just trying not to sound too black because the first
Okay, all right. Let's unpack
listen,
this.
it was we had predominantly white listeners, and the first week that I got on with a homie of mine, Jonas Adams, who still works. He still works for NPR. They were complaining that our voices sounded too black because they
Wow.
weren't used to hearing black voices on public radio in Mississippi. And so for a long time, I was trying to change the way I spoke, and I was kind of trying to be the black Terry Gross. And it took me about 4 years into it that I started letting my personality shine. And so I just decided, I can't keep up this facade. I don't sound like this. I do not, that sorry to bother you voice where you do your code switching. I couldn't sustain it. I couldn't keep it up. And when I started being myself and cracking jokes every once in a while, even when it was a serious topic we were talking about and there started to be a little more banter on the shows I was co-hosting, then that's when my comedy started to kind of shine through on the radio. But you can't, you still gotta keep it in check because it is public radio, and everybody's like, oh, we want information. Oh, we don't want too many jokes unless it's wait, don't tell me, or don't ask, so unless it's a comedy program, that ain't what they're really checking for. But because it was in Mississippi and we had a lot of local programming, I was able to let my personality shine a little bit on radio, but not at first.
So another thing that, specifically to us that we have to kind of deal with all the time when you are in, a predominantly white space, that pressure to conform, and then that inner pressure of just like, dang, am I shucking and jiving right now? Am I not keeping it real? Am I like, oh, I want to be myself, but I also gotta do this? It's like, it's so many mental and emotional gymnastics that we have to deal with and go through just to be, just to work, just
Yeah.
to be, just to be able to make a living and do, what we want to do is crazy. It's wild.
It did make me tighten up because it was a funny story. It was my first month on the job, and I was announcing like festivals happening in the state. And I said, "All right, y'all, coming up this Saturday, the crappie festival is coming up in whatever city." And actually, it was a fish, and it's the crappie. And so I did not, I had never seen that word, crappie fish. I'm black. We eat catfish and pan trout.
Right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying? Like I ain't nothing about no crappie. And so I said, you know what? From this point on, I'm gonna do my research and make sure I'm educated on all these topics before I get on these folks' radio.
Listen,
So
yeah. On that one, you just ain't do no research. On that one, you couldn't blame it on nobody else.
it's like the crappy
The
festival.
crappy fish
Folks
festival.
probably like, yo, our festival ain't crappy. What you
Like,
talking about?
ma'am, hilarious. All right, so before we move past Kevin Hart, how long had you been doing stand up? From the time you started to the time you got that opportunity on Kevin Hart.
Seriously, about 3 years. So I started in 2013, and my whole life circumstance was different. I was married to a man at the time. I'm married to a woman now. But 2013, my comedy was different. My material was completely
Everything was different. Everything.
Oh yeah. And so I was just getting started then, and then I started to perform more regularly by 2014, and then the TV breakthrough with Kevin came in 2017, and that is also the year that I quit radio. It was the same month. I quit the radio station July 2017, and that same month I got tapped for Kevin Hart's Heart of the City. And so that was just a blessing in and of itself because God kept telling me, you can't receive something new unless you let something old go, because I was afraid. I was afraid to leave the radio station because of the stability. I knew how much I was getting paid, but I knew I wasn't completely immersing myself into comedy because I was at the radio station from 8 to 5. So as soon as I quit, I'm talking about the doors, the floodgates just opened in the best way.
Another jewel right there. Because the radio station, as you said, I mean, even though you was calling their festivals crappy and all that kind of stuff, they weren't allowing you to fully even be, a comedian or let your comedy chops fly. So you couldn't even cultivate a fan base really with the being based in the radio because you had to do something completely different. So having that
Right.
faith to just knowing that you had to let that go so that you could truly dive into what you wanted to dive into was definitely a big leap, and it paid off for you in a big way.
Yes.
So, all right, so you do Kevin Hart, you do the Kevin Hart special. So now you are a professional stand-up comedian with a with a major credit, are are your goals at that time? Okay, now I'm doing more TV, or was it just to like I'm just going to be a professional stand up and I'm going to just tour and that's it?
Yeah, it was both those. My idea or my goal was to use the TV credit to get more stand up gigs because that's what I was told by all the veterans. You need that TV credit to get into these clubs and to get into these spaces. And so that was my goal was to, hey, this is Rita Brent from Comedy Central's Heart of the City, and that would get me in the door. And it did. It helped open more doors. The next door that was open was True TV's Laugh Mom's Laugh Tracks, which was created by Bob Sumner, the co-creator of Def Jam. And so I got to be on that for a couple seasons. And, TV is just huge because it just reaches so many people. These are projects that I did, what years is it? 5 years ago, and folks are still coming up talking about the Miss Shirley joke or the shit shoes joke, so I do think that TV definitely still has an impact, even though the internet is taking over. It still works.
So, that's definitely true. And, having people having different roads and different, avenues that you go down to get into it. I know for me and for you and for many other stand-ups, stand-up is kind of like that through line that leads to all the other things. And so, maybe somebody is listening in, I don't know, wherever, Idaho or somewhere, and maybe they're not a stand-up, and maybe maybe there's a different path. But if you have a skill that allows you to be valuable, that other people, can use. For us, it was stand-up. It was being able to entertain and perform and to write jokes. That is a valuable skill to kind of get you into so many different industries, but particularly television, just doing your thing as a stand-up, because it has so many different elements that, can work in so many different places in the corporate world. If you're making a presentation, a boring ass presentation, and you're able to spice it up with a little bit of humor, that'll get you that lock in that deal a lot quicker. That'll, get you that promotion a lot faster. If you're able to make speeches at the big launch for the company, and there's 5,000 people there in this big auditorium, and you're able to go out there and razzle dazzle, like those skills, they say that public speaking is, the thing that people are most afraid of, more afraid of that than death itself. So if you're able to not only be a great public speaker in order, but you're also able to be funny as well, like that just kind of, that muscle alone will open up so many opportunities and so many doors in so many different ways. So if you, like, I guess my from my personal experience and from what it sounds like you're saying, if you do have the gift of gab and you're able to be funny as well, use that as a tool, because it will open a lot of doors that and allow you to get into a lot of spaces through other avenues, so you don't have to go through a traditional trajectory, if you will.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I've done graduation speeches. I just finished doing a tourism speech for Mississippi recently, and all of this is from stand up. But you have to be flexible enough, because I have some comedian partners who are like, I can't do a gig without cursing. I said, that is insane. That is insane that you would pass up all this money just because you can't go without saying shit in a sentence. So that also helps, being versatile, being flexible, um, you know, because doing a graduation speech, you have to be inspiring, but throwing some comedy in there, that's gonna set you apart. So yeah, it is a blessing, but I understand also the stage fright thing, because I have it. Everybody's under the assumption that, oh, because you do comedy and you're on stage all the time, that there's no fear. Oh, no, no, no. I deal with anxiety in a severe way, but I just have my things to cope with it, tea and different capsules to help. But my mantra is to feel the fear and do it anyway, because I used to be lying, talking about I was fearless. Oh, I'm fearless. I ain't scared of nothing. And my body and my stomach was like, oh yeah, we definitely scared. So the key is to feel the fear and do it anyway. You acknowledge the fear, like, all right, I know you in the car with me, but you in the back seat, you not in the front. I'm driving. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, because you're going to be afraid. Anybody would be.
You might be in the car with me, but you're in the back seat. I'm in the front driving. I love that analogy.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
All right, so you're doing these, you're in the world of television. You're doing these different gigs. The first time I saw you was on Comedy Hype as a contributor, which I thought
Mm-hmm.
you were great on that. I guess how did that come about? Because I know, shout out to them. They've grown their platform to be a huge platform. How did you end up on Comedy Hype?
Well, this goes to the idea of it pays to know people. I met comedian Pierre. I was doing a show with Ricky Smiley at Zany's in Nashville. It had to be 2016, 2017. It was a December gig, and I was opening up for Ricky, and I did maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And comedian Pierre, he's an actor. You've seen him in Baps
All a
and some
bunch of
other
stuff
stuff.
back, in the '90s coming up. You was in everything.
Yeah. Yeah, so Pierre saw me back in 2017, and fast forward 2 or 3 years later, he recommended me to be one of the contributors because it was Comedy Hype News, so we're going to be talking about all things news in the comedy spectrum. And Pierre recommended me, and that's literally how I got it. John, who runs Comedy Hype, didn't know anything about me. He just took Pierre's word for it that I was legitimate, and Pierre vetted for me, and that's how I got on. And so those relationships matter. So that's why I'm not a fan of burning bridges. I'm not about to be talking noise about my cohorts because you never know when you might need somebody. So, what if I had been tweeting crazy stuff about Pierre at some point?
Exactly.
Yeah, I could have talked myself out of a job. So that's a thing with social media. Just because you have the ability to say anything doesn't mean that you should, because you don't know what you could be sabotaging.
I that another through line that I hear and that I say, in these interviews, but just in general, is it's all about networking and it's all about how people feel about working with you. More so than talent, more so than anything else, it's people wanting to work with you and people saying, oh, this person was a pleasure to be with. This person is a pleasure to be around. This person is professional. Be professional. Don't be an asshole. Like, if you can do those two
Yep.
things, you will trump people that are more talented than you, but don't have those attributes. And I say that all the time. I say it till I'm blue in the face. It's one of the things that kind of that's kept me working is what I lack in maybe experience in some areas. I make up for in professionalism and just being somebody that people want to work with. And
Absolutely.
so yeah, that's definitely key. So you go from that's interesting. So you go from being a stand-up comedian on television where you're still, even though you're on TV, you're still basically doing something that you do all the time. You're doing stand up. So we do stand up hundred, thousands of times off TV. By the time we get on TV, it's still, yeah, it can be a little bit nerve wracking because it's like, oh, now it's on TV, but it's still something that you do in your sleep. So you can kind of kick that in with commentating on, news topics and things of that nature. Was that like a different muscle for you? Did you have to kind of learn a different skill, or was that something that you kind of pulled from your radio days? Like, how did you develop that muscle?
Yeah, definitely had to pull from radio because having to fill an hour back when I was at MPB, talking about different topics, it was basically the same thing. It's just on camera. But when you talking on TV and stuff is going on YouTube, whatever you say goes. You cannot take it back. So I did a heavy amount of reading, no matter what the topic was, no matter what we were talking about. I did a heavy amount of reading to make sure that my opinion was informed and not uninformed, because I never want to sound dumb or ignorant on anybody's TV, anybody's tube. I don't care what kind of tube it is, TV, YouTube. But yeah, you just you gotta be careful with what you say, because I remember one time we were having a conversation about our comedy Mount Rushmore, like who are the top four comedians. And, I'm not a fan of topics like that because the list is so long for me, really. But since I had to narrow it down, I think I said Richard Pryor, Dave Chappelle, Wanda Sykes, and Godfrey. I think those were the four that I chose. And, and it was people were like, well, what about Eddie Murphy? How you a comedian? Eddie Murphy ain't on your. And I said, well, Eddie Murphy is my on my Mount Rushmore for comedic movies. You know, I mean, what comedian does not admire Eddie Murphy? Just because I said these names, and so that became a thing. They're all in the comments, talk about I'm not a real comedian. I don't know real comedy. Just because, and I'm like, oh my god. And that got to be a little bothersome for me, the comments and all that kind of stuff, because I just want to have healthy conversations. I'm not trying to argue with strangers, and now I'm looking you up trying to see how I can come find you and we can get it popping on site. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to have that kind of stress. So if you're on comedy hype, you got to get ready for that kind of stress because the people in the comments they gonna come for you. Now they wouldn't have the gall to be on the platform and speak their piece, but they damn sure gonna try to tear you down for speaking yours.
Now and that's another element that you kind of have to get used to via online platform, because now you got comments in real time and in real life of people coming at you, whereas under normal circumstances on TV, prior to social media, it's just like you say it, whatever, but they might talk about it around the water cooler, but it ain't really get at you like that. Now it's like in your face. And that's just
Yeah.
something that you just got to get used to with with the medium and the times that we're in. That just is what it is. Now,
Yeah, but create some boundaries, man. Oh, you
boundaries.
have. I see celebrities dipping off Twitter every week. Did you see the latest is Ari Lennox? She went to Ghana and she got on Twitter and talked about how great of an experience she had in Ghana, and they ate her up about that. Now she's like, I'm handing over my Twitter to my label. I'm like, damn, people ruin it. They ruin it, man. But yeah, you gotta have tough skin. And for me, how I deal with comments, whether it's a TV show or whatever, is I just don't respond to them anymore. I just don't. Now if I got time, I may screenshot somebody who deserves to be roasted and just go in. Otherwise, you have to disassociate from those comments because it's a distraction.
So we go from comedy hype, and then the next kind of, I guess, trajectory, correct me if I'm wrong, is God's honest truth.
Yeah, that would be it. Yeah.
So, which is where we met officially.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I'm, going through 300 submissions, for writing packets, and you know, every time I would see it, the thing is, here's a little bit of behind the scenes as far as like head writers type of stuff and whatnot. I had to get in and go through over 300 submissions in a weekend because I came in
Woo.
late to the show. So I'm going through these packets, and I'm not gonna lie, most of the packets, and even Stephen Colbert himself will back this up. Has told me this: when you're going through these submissions, most of them are terrible. Like so many bad ones, and so you get to a point where you're like, you're rooting for every packet. Like, please be good. Like, just don't make me fall
Important.
asleep. Please, I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you. So, you're going through. And so when you see one that doesn't completely just make you want to quit your job and jump out the window, you like, thank you, Lord. Thank you, comedy gods, for like sending something that I can like replenish and rejuvenate with some quality material. So your package was definitely one of those ones where like it like jarred me out and was like, oh, this is great. What
Yes.
I guess my question to you is, what made you decide that, hey, I'm gonna give writing a shot, because you had done comedy on television, stand up. You were a commentator and contributor on television or on on social platform, on a digital platform. So what kind of made you say, you know what, let me try my hand at actually writing for a TV show? Was it just basically something where your agents was like, hey, write this packet? Or were you interested in it? Were you like, was that a goal? Like kind of what led you into that direction?
I cannot say it was a goal because I am performance driven, but I write everything I perform. So I think I just didn't know I had the capacity to write on this level. even though I have written all of my stuff since I began. I didn't think, oh, these skills are transferable to writing for somebody else. It just didn't click for me. And yes, my agents did send it to me, but I also think you can never have enough experience. Yeah, it's fine to do stand up, and yeah, but you need to know how to work the camera just in case somebody gets sick. You need to know how to edit. When I do my podcast, I edit my podcast, and I know how to upload it to Podbean, just because you want to have that autonomy in case you need it. And so what I submitted for that packet was it was a transcript for one of my Rita Brent reports because I got the packet late and the deadline was really close and I didn't have time to think of things from scratch. So I used what I wrote for my own Rita Brent report as my submission. And I was surprised that I got it off that. But it just goes to show that consistency matters and what you're doing matters because, I don't get a ton of views on the Rita Brent report, but that writing is what got me my first TV writing job. So just keep doing what you're doing. It's gonna lead somewhere, even if you get weary.
Such a great jewel right there that you just dropped. Keep doing what you're doing, even if it is not going, or it didn't go viral, or I don't have 100 million followers. I don't. So what? Keep doing it because you don't know what those things in your portfolio can lead to later on. I mean, so many times I've done things and just put it out in the atmosphere. And it's like, ain't nobody probably checking for it, but I have fun doing it and whatever. It makes me feel like productive and makes me feel like an artist. And lo and behold, it'll be that one video that I did or that one chucked up news or that one sketch or something that I said, ain't nobody watching that. That somebody would be like, oh yeah, I saw this and that made me think of you for this, and you just don't know. And also consistency, because it's funny, they say doing the same thing over and over again expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Well, we must be some crazy mother suckers, because putting out content over and over again and not getting the traction that you want, but just keep doing it because you believe that it's going to lead to something eventually, will make you feel like you're a crazy person. It will make you feel like I should be in the nut house. But lo and behold, it can lead to a great opportunity.
And that might be for relationships. That one about dealing with the same person over and over again, thinking they're gonna change. That's insanity. Now, that works in relationships, but not in business.
Not in business. Hilarious. So, obviously we work together extensively on the show. And we could go on and on about the ins and outs and the ups and downs and all that stuff. But I'm gonna try and keep it. We're gonna keep it. We're gonna keep it tame and keep it cute. No,
keep it in the pocket.
But in general, working in television, what is something that with this writing gig, or with your first major television writing gig, what's something that you learn that you didn't expect to learn, I guess? Either about yourself or about about the job or the gig. Was it something that you kind of took away from it so far where you're just like, I didn't know that, but I'm glad I learned that?
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff I've learned. A couple things that come to mind. A friend of mine, stand-up comedian, writer, Sean Larkins, he writes for The Neighborhood. And when I got the gig, I talked to Sean. I said, hey, man, I need some advice. I'm entering a writing room for the first time, And he said, look, don't get upset when your pitch doesn't get picked. Don't take it personal. Just know that the no's are coming and it's okay. And I was like, oh, okay. And so once we got into the writing process, we pitch a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We pitch a lot of stuff. And it may get greenlit initially, and then it falls by the wayside. And that advice from Sean always comes to mind. Listen, don't be mad at the no's. Don't take it personal. It's just a part of the game.
Yeah.
So if I had to say the biggest thing, it's just that everything is just a part of the game. and don't stress about what you can't control, because what I have learned is that there's a large chain of command.
Yes.
The hierarchy is very tall. So you can only do what you do, and make sure that you are putting your best foot forward and just rest in that. But just know that some things just come with it, and that there are other people that have to make decisions, So you just have to be okay with that until you get in those positions.
100%. Just do what you do and rest in that. That is definitely something that even for me in my position, I had to learn as well. It's just like, you do what you can do and do it at the best of your capability, but you can't control what you can't control, and you can't take it personal. I was just looking at another video. I did a video with a good friend of mine, Esteban, who's a producer, and one of the things that he said was that sometimes you have to realize when you're an artist, and sometimes you have to realize when you're at work. Sometimes it is, you got to die on that hill for your artistic integrity because this, that, and the third. And sometimes you just got to make sure that the shit is turned in on time and you get done what you need to get done. Like, everything ain't about you. You're a part of a collaborative. You're a part of a team, and you're part of a bigger picture. So that's definitely sound advice from your friend.
And one more thought is to not be so engrossed that you lose yourself. Because I think that happened to me because I was doing the Rita Brent report regularly before we started writing on The God's Honest Truth. And then I took like an 8-month hiatus, however long we were writing. It's just like I lost my own sense of independence in the industry. I was like, oh, this is all I'm doing. This is all I can do. So leave room for extra bandwidth, do your work, but also know how to compartmentalize and categorize so you can still do your own thing on the side. So don't lose yourself in the job. Give your all, but still leave some bandwidth to do your own thing.
Yes, absolutely. Leave some bandwidth. And I think I'll give ourselves a little bit of leniency, because for both of us, me in this position and you having the writer gig as a staff writer, it was our first time in these roles. And so it's like we're diving in head first, and we want to make sure that we, learn everything we can and make sure that we are doing the best we can and making sure we're justifying our position and making sure all those things. And so, but, now looking back at it and also, having that experience under our belt, that's definitely sound advice of just like making sure that you still leave room for yourself and leave room for your own creative space. You can't give everything to a project, otherwise you will be drained, but also you'll kind of forget, you'll lose kind of like who you are. Because the thing you brought up again of it's not personal. If a pitch doesn't get greenlit or something, whatever happens, or a joke bombs in the room or something like that, it's not personal. But at the same time, if you don't still have that part of yourself that you're still kind of working on, that those personal projects or those personal things that you're doing just for you, you'll lose confidence. It's a big chance that you'll go, damn, am I funny? Like, I'm pretty sure I'm funny. I thought I was. I used to be. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. So you gotta, whatever it is, you gotta kind of keep that going.
It's just a balance. That's all it is.
Exactly.
A 2-syllable word, balance. You gotta have some balance. Because I stopped doing stand-up all the way when we started writing for the show. I just stopped getting out and going to rooms. And then when it was time for me to perform with Ricky Smiley and Cedrick the Entertainer, I was like, ooh, I'm rusty.
Yep.
I'm rusty. So you can't completely abandon your own thing. Find that balance.
Exactly.
Find it.
And just in general, not to belabor the point, but just in general, you also don't want to have all of your eggs in one basket, and that's for any job, any career, or any industry. You always want to make sure that you still have those other skills sharpened, those other things about you going, because if, God forbid, one opportunity ends, you're just kind of like out there in the cold, just like, oh, well, let me figure something out. And,
Yep.
you know, other things will come, but it's good to kind of just have those, like you said, you don't want to feel rusty. You don't want to feel like, oh, well, this is the only thing that I've been doing for the past 2-3 years. I don't know how to do nothing else. So
Yeah.
definitely good advice. So just a couple more things. I could talk to you forever, but just a couple more things. A huge opportunity, or another huge opportunity came for you while you were writing for us. You got a chance to write for the Emmys. So I just want to kind of get a little bit of what that was like, because, you know, you're writing for late night, and now you're writing for Emmys. Some people think that TV is just TV, and that ain't how it is. Like, there's different formats and different structures and all types of different stuff. So going from writing for a late night weekly talk show to writing for an award show, particularly the Emmys, what was that like for you? And how did that come about?
So I'll tell you what I just told a friend. God is always preparing you. It may not seem like it. It may seem minuscule, and you're like, oh, why am I doing this? God is always preparing you for something bigger. So how the Emmys thing came about, I met Cedrick the Entertainer, it was like 2019, I believe. And his manager was like, oh, you're super funny. We're going to, put you on tour. So I've been touring with Ced for a couple years.
Dope.
And 2020 or 2021, I can't keep up with the years. We were at Naples, Florida, at a comedy club. And it was just me and Ced. I was opening for him, and Ced was headlining, of course. And that night, one of those nights, I was listening to his set, and I'm like, oh, man, I hear some stuff he can add to make it funnier. And so I took all these notes on his set that night. And I texted my mom. I said, hey, man, I took these notes on Ced's set. Should I give it to him like the king of comedy? Like, should I give him the notes? And she was like, yeah, baby, give it to him. The most he can say is, what, no, or thank you, or not use them.
Yeah.
And so I gave him the notes. I just texted him. I said, hey, man, took some notes on your jokes, and here you go.
Was there a part of you, I don't like to interrupt, but was there a part of you of just being like, am I playing myself right now? Like, I'm Rita Brent, little me is about to give the king of comedy notes on stand-up. Like, was there that part of you just like, yo, bro, I might be playing myself?
Yo, this is me sending the text. I saw something you could add to this joke. And then I texted and whoo, shit. Oh. And I don't even think I got much sleep that night. I just kept going back to the text. Like, is that even funny? I was just freaking out, man. Because he was just like, oh, he's very short with words. He was like, all right, thank you, And so the next night, he used all of the notes.
Wow.
All of them bitches hit, bro. All of them hit.
Wow.
And I'm just standing back there like, oh, yes. And so he came off stage, and I'm like, what's up? And he was like, yeah, them notes work pretty well. Thank you. And that was it. That's all he said. And I'm like, okay, cool. Fast forward 3 months.
Yeah.
His manager calls me and he said, oh, yeah, I got a great opportunity for you. Ced wants you to write for him for the Emmys. I was like, what? What you mean?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I was like, hold on, bro. I was like, yo, it's me. It's Rita. You know what this is? He's like, yeah. Ced wants you to write for him for the Emmys. I was like, what? Oh, okay. So my mouth is dropped. I was walking with somebody at the time, and I just completely ignored this fella because my mind was going on on the phone. And so, he was like, yo, he had to do the monologue. He was hosting the 73rd Primetime Emmys. He was building his team, and he wanted me to specifically write for him for the monologue. But when I actually got the gig, I ended up being in the writer's room, and we were writing sketches and pitches for the entire award ceremony. We had to write opening phrases and dialogue for actors and actresses. And when I say God is preparing me, it's because had I not been in Charlamagne Tha God's Honest Truth room, had I not been in that writer's room, I would have had no idea how a writer's room worked. So the Charlamagne gig started in May. I got the Emmys gig in September. So those few months of experience being in the room with you guys prepared me for being in the room with freaking legends in the Emmys room. These are folks who wrote for In Living Color, Chris Rock, any famous black show, Boomerang, you can name, those writers were in the Emmys room. And so that it just goes to show you to take chances, because had I not taken that chance and given said those notes, he wouldn't even known that I was capable of punching up jokes to join him to write for the Emmys. So just keep in mind, God is always preparing you, and feel the fear and do it anyway, because I was afraid to give him those notes, but I was just like, forget it, man. You know, I keep telling people, you know, you go to Chuck E. Cheese and you have tokens and you're like, hey man, I'm gonna save these tokens for the next time I come to Chuck E. Cheese. And you never go.
Never go.
So do not leave this earth with tokens in your pocket. That's what I'm not gonna do it.
Hey, do not leave this earth with tokens in your pocket. Wow.
I'm not gonna do it.
That's dope. Now you're in that room, and just real quick, and you know, I kind of know this, and I know that we kind of talked about this prior to you getting the gig or starting the gig, but there's a difference between, you know, writing in late night format and writing for a daytime show and writing for a sitcom and writing for an award show. So what are just a couple things you notice as far as just the difference in writing for, you know, a late night comedy talk show and writing for an award show?
Ooh, well, it's a lot more people to write for. So you literally have to have a little bit of knowledge about everybody so you can write in their voice. You know, you think they may be speaking for themselves, but nah, somebody's behind the scenes writing what Jada Pinkett is saying, or what you know, Sterling Brown is saying when he's introducing this award. So, you know, once you get into the writer's room, I immediately started watching everything. I started watching Lasso and all of these shows that were up for Emmys and who I knew we would have to write for, because you have to have an idea of what's their voice. And still, again, you can't be afraid to pitch stuff. Because somebody in the room, they're going to hear it and they're like, oh, yeah, let's do that. You know, it's very competitive. So at first I was in the room and I was just kind of quiet because I was still in shock, you know. And then I just started pitching stuff like, F it, I'm going to pitch. And then, you know, you throw 10 things, one thing, you get one thing, that's still good because it's going to make it on air, and you get to say, I got a pitch that landed, you know. So yeah, it is competitive. So don't be afraid to pitch stuff. Have a general knowledge of who you're writing for. And if you find somebody in the room that you connect with, let the head writer know, like, hey, I want to tag team with this person. So for me, that was a young lady named Nefertari Spencer, very talented writer and actress. She writes for People's Awards, Soul Train Awards, any awards you can imagine, she's written for them.
She is the go-to. Hands down. She is the go-to for not only, I mean, not just award shows, but definitely award shows. Forget about it. She's killing it right now. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I forgot the show that she's on. It's not The Shy. Is it The Shy? No, it's not. Southside.
Southside. Yep.
Yeah. But she and we connected in the writer's room. And so we just tag teamed on some pitches and stuff like that, because you need help. You know, you don't get in there thinking, all right, I'm just gonna do it by myself. You know, nah, no man is an island. So I figured out, all right, we can tag team, and using her expertise and her comedic sense and mine, we were able to accomplish a lot. So if you find somebody you connect to, you know, try to do stuff together with them.
That's dope. And I feel like a lot of people, especially stand-up comedians, we're so used to working by ourselves that the word collaboration is so foreign to us. So just, you know, taking that on and just being like, no fool, you know, find a partner, find somebody to work with. Two minds are better than one is great insight. And just for an extra tidbit, when you're working in whether it's late night, whether it's, you know, the Emmys, whether it's award shows, just being able to take notes, because you're going to get a lot of them. You're going to get a lot of notes. And, you know, just at a certain point, your job description is implement the notes that you get. It's like you're no longer an artist, comedian. Just add these daggone notes and make sure you get what you need to get into the script, and especially when it comes to these award shows. That's what I learned. I've written for a few award shows myself, and I went into it like, all right, I'm going to wait till they hear these jokes and these ideas, and then by the time you get in the thick of it, it's just like add these notes. Make sure you say the words that's supposed to be said that the network wants you to
Yep.
say because Pepsi Cola is the sponsor and this, that, and the third. And
Yeah.
it's like, all
Yeah.
right.
Erica Badu said, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. Well, you cannot be in a writer's room.
Mm-mm.
You cannot.
Not for
Because
TV.
one time, one of them head producers was reading a pitch and they was like, this is just not funny. This is not funny. It wasn't mine, but I was just like,
Woo!
woo, woo. I would have cried.
It's like, oh,
And
you
they
gonna
just be
you gonna
like,
cry
in your
when you get in the
face.
car.
This ain't funny. Who wrote this?
Ooh, and you the who wrote this?
He just like, so yeah, don't be sensitive, man. You know what I'm saying? It is a tough industry.
Yeah.
You know. So your self-esteem has to be tight, and your self-worth, your self-assurance and actualization, you need to work on all of that before you get in the entertainment industry, lest you be depressed and crying all the time.
All the time. All the
Know
time.
who you are, Simba. I don't know
Listen.
who said that in The Lion King, but listen to him.
100%. All right, two more things because I know your time is precious. If there is one thing, I would say a mistake. Now, I don't want to say mistake, but they say that if a loss is an L is an L if you turn it into a lesson, right? So if there was just something that you can look back on and you were giving advice to somebody else and being like, I learned to not do this, whether it was your mistake or via somebody else's, but something where it's just like, don't do this, and you will save you a lot of headache. Is there one thing that you can think of?
All right, let me think about somebody else because I'm perfect. Hold on. Let me see.
So that's it. That's the one mistake, thinking that you're perfect. And
That is a good point, though. Okay, that's it. Let's see. How can I say this? All voices matter. Maybe that's it. You know, we all have our own experiences, and as a black man, you have your perspective on things. As a black woman, I have my perspectives on things. Um, but everything you think you know is not the gospel. So don't be arrogant in your perspective, where you are so convinced of your beliefs that you're not even open to somebody else's train of thought. Because I appreciate the diversity in our writers' room. We have white men, Jewish, Christian, gay, not gay, and the perspectives sometimes were radically different. Um, so yeah, I've seen that mistake where you're so convinced of your own perspectives and beliefs that you're not open to others' train of thought. And when you're trying to write a show that is universal and broad, you can't do that. you know. So you have to be as good of a listener as you are a good writer. It's important to listen as well, and don't talk over, and try to be the authority or the superior in the room. Yeah, it's more like a democracy. Just be willing to listen.
Democracy, be willing to listen. Final question. Of You've had an illustrious career thus far. It only gets more and more great as you continue to soar. Give me one holy shit moment where you were like, I cannot believe this is my life right now. And you've already dropped a few things. You given comedy notes to, to Cedrick the Entertainer, doing all kinds of stuff. Is there one moment where you stopped and took it in and said, damn, I cannot believe this is me right now. This is wild.
Whew. Oh man, it's like a 10-way tie, dog. Let me see. I gotta say, equally amazing has been opening up for Ricky Smiley and Cedrick the Entertainer, because they're just so gigantic and so legendary. Um, the fact that they know my name and respect my work is just mind blowing. Even as I speak of it, it gives me chills. It's mind blowing to know that the freaking king of comedy likes my stand up and thought enough of me to allow me to write for him. That Ricky Smiley, considers me a sister and just gives me advice for free because he feels like I'm not his competition or nobody is his competition. Um, just that thought that legends like that can trust me enough and value me enough to allow me in their spaces and pour into me is just mind blowing. So
I mean,
yeah,
listen, it ain't nothing to sneeze at. I mean, real talk. You were in Jackson, Mississippi, watching Kings of Comedy on somebody's bootleg tape, probably. Watching Bernie Mac, watching Sid, watching DL, watching Steve, going, this is funny, this is hilarious. Watching your cousins high five, doing the bits, doing the whole nine.
yep,
Watching Sid on the Steve Harvey show, and this is funny, this is great.
yep.
And
Steady poo.
watching Comic View, and Sid coming out and doing the Staples Sisters bit with the
Yep.
cane and the bass, all of that. Watching Ricky Smiley do Lil Daryl, we all came up on it. So it is not to be lost on the fact that these years later, those same people that you grew up knowing all their material and making you laugh, and you going, man, one day, hopefully I can do that one day. Now they know you personally and trust your comedy chops and insight and ability enough that they will take you on tour and consider you a peer. That's the biggest thing. When the
Yeah.
legends look at you as a peer, that's wild. So
Yeah. It's
definitely
like, what
take
else
that
can you
in.
ask for? Yeah.
Definitely.
What else can you ask for? I mean, you can ask for a lot. But I think it is important to be grateful. As the Bible says, be grateful over a few things, now make you ruler of many. So
Exactly.
we get caught up a lot of times comparing ourselves to other people and thinking, oh, I haven't done enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've done a lot.
You've done a lot.
So
You've done a lot. You've
pat
done a
yourself
lot.
on the back, but keep going. Yeah.
Listen, I could talk about. I talk to you forever. So happy that I'm so happy that our paths crossed, and that we have gotten to and continue to get to work together and collab on stuff. And it's just such an honor and a pleasure to be able to call you my peer. So thank you for coming in and dropping so many jewels and giving us your insight and your expertise. And hopefully a lot of people will be able to take from that. And one day we'll be able to meet them. And they'll be like, yo, I watched you on such and such. And you inspired me and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate you.
Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the platform. I think this is so great that you are willing to share and enlighten. A lot of people want to harbor information and keep it to themselves, but you're a man of the people and just a good human being, man. Good human beings that we're lacking. It's a lot of wild folks out here, but you're one of the good ones, Charles. So thank you for having me, brother.
All right, just remember that when the scandal drops, I'm gonna play this clip. Be like Rita Brent said.
I'd be like, oh no, I ain't know him. I ain't know that side of Charles. I ain't know that side of Charles. You remember they tried to blame Oprah, like, you knew about Harvey. Oprah, like,
Yep.
I ain't had no APB on his penis. What we doing
Here's
here?
a picture of Rita and Charles at outside of a bodega. Like, I ain't know what the hell. He had bodies buried in a basement. What the hell?
I was supposed to know.
Hilarious. All right, thank you, Rita.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you.